Hey guys, Chief Fruity here, and this is the behind the scenes of Salvation Day. So in this video I'm going to show you guys how I made Salvation Day with sound design and music wise. So let's get into it. So first I have the tempo at 128 BPM, which is a pretty standard tempo for EDM, not too complex there, just 128 BPM. So starting off the song, it is a very simple start. I'm going to go into this kick here, which I call the boom because it is this really loud kick, as you can see with the volume multiplier is really loud, as well as it's full on the mixer track up here, and I put on some reverb onto it just a little bit to kind of open it up a little bit more. So it's like, let me see, so it's more like this instead of this. So that's why I put some reverb on there, as well as the volume multiplier is really loud, it's over 50%, or if you're counting the whole scale, over 150%. Oh no, over 50%, because then this would be negative polarity, so this would be negative 50, and positive 50 is about 55. So that's where that is. So I have the kick there with this crash, and both of them gets that intro, and the crash is just standard volume there. So I like to put those on the very first hit. It just kind of gives it a good intro into the song. And then here I have this lead, which I called Other Stuff, which I know is kind of weird to call it Other Stuff, but originally when I was starting the song, this was going to be like a backup lead, and the original lead was this. This was the original lead. But then I changed it to this, and I didn't change the name, so it's still called Other Stuff. So that's what's going on there. But the pattern is this. And then this was made in a citrus. So, this is kind of an interesting sound. And most of how it's getting this interesting sound is in operator 1 pitch envelope, where I have this envelope on the pitch. And without the envelope, it would sound like this. And then with the envelope. So it's just taking the pitch from 0 and rising it an octave really fast once it gets to this point. So I could have done it like this, and it would be gradual. But that sounds really weird. And then here it just starts an octave above anyway. So I had it right there, that's what I liked, and it is kind of interesting to have that pitch rise on the synth right there. And that's running a triangle wave. And then I don't have anything in operator 2. The operator 3, I did put it through another triangle wave. I did not do the pitch envelope again because it did sound weird when there's two pitch envelopes doing the same thing. So I can show you that really quickly. So it just goes up in the first little one. So these have to be deleted like this. So you may have noticed that it did sound weird in the beginning, and towards the end it didn't. That's because I rose this up to 2, and that's because these are both playing different notes. So this is actually playing a 2.0 frequency, which is the standard octave, and this is 1.0, which would be an octave down. So since it's playing C, the second part would be playing like about a G or an F, somewhere around here would be where it would be. So let's just say it's playing an F, so it sounds like this, more or less. So that is basically why it didn't fit. So when I moved this up to 2, it did fit because then I brought this part up here. But that it still did sound kind of weird because since it got put up there, it still is weird having the double layer with a pitch, since these are running at different filters, different pitch ratios. So I didn't want to bring this up to 2 and have this, this sounds better. This sounds too high. So that's just kind of some random thoughts there that didn't really have much to do with this. But anyway, I get on tangents like that a lot. So Let's go into operator 5. Where operator 5, I am running a triangle wave again at the same frequency. And then 3 is going through 5, and 5 is going through 5. So I have them going through themselves, 1, 3, and 5. Just because when you do that, like if I take these off, it sounds like this. Just to give it some depth, so it sounds a little more realistic. And then I have these going directly to the output. I have all the filters going directly to the output. And I have the effects engaged on operator 1. And the effects are, let's see, let's take it off and see. So it looks like it's adding some delay and chorus in the effects. Though still with the new Citrus, I'm still not completely done figuring out how this effects tab works. So, but it looks like some delay and chorus to me. And that's fully engaged directly to the output. And then on all the filters, actually no, it's only filter 1 and 2. I have the high pass on. On filter 1 it's the high pass, and then here it's the sine wave pass. I'm pretty sure that's what this stands for. It's like some sine frequency pass, which would basically be, it would be the opposite of the high pass. Not the quite low pass, but more like a mid pass kind of thing. It's the SVF, which is kind of a mid pass, but like not quite. It's like in between. But enough of that. So I have those passes going because when this was on the high, let's see, high. It just sounded too high, and I even set it all the way up with just the low because, you know, I didn't want it to be like this. And I could have done this in an EQ, but you know, Citrus is already pulled up. This is just how I did it. So that's what's going on inside of Citrus. And I did put some effects on it on the track 19. So without these effects, it would sound like this. And then with a patcher, where I have a really wide reverb that's pretty high, so it's adding a lot of reverb on here. And then I have an effector with more reverb, just to kind of really widen that up with a lot of reverb, because this is EDM, so you really want to put reverb on there. And then some chorus. Without the chorus, and then with the chorus. So the chorus really does cover over those triangle waves and really smoothen them out, almost like a sine wave, but not quite, just by the sound. So the chorus definitely is used, very valuable to the synth and pattern. So after it does that, that is a very big portion of the song because this plays a lot in the song. But yeah, so the kick, I already showed you the kick and crash. I have a 909 snare with some reverb on track 3, just reverb, nothing too special there. Just you know, EDM, those loud snares. Then I have some bass. So this bass is just a pretty simple pattern. And this was made in Harmor. So, let's see, let's open that up. So it's basically, so if I were to reset the filter, it's really just the exact default sine wave you would get from Harmor, just the pitch is down, and you decrease the filter. Just to get kind of a sub bass, but it does have some harmonics in it. 'Cause if I wanted just a plain sub bass, I'd just go into Citrus. But I wanted to get a little more harmonics in here, so I used Harmor. So that's what I have for the bass there. And then noise, just, you know, really basic noise. Just GMS noise 0 to 100%. And then I have this rise here. So this is a very simpler part of the song. So what it's doing here, where's the filter? It looks like this is the Mode X filter. So in the side of this synth, I attach it to a filter. that you probably heard when you were listening to the song. And operator 1, it is mode X. I just did this with the filter, and this worked here because this has a very similar structure to an FM synth where it's going through all the operators and triangle waves, and then since it's doing that, you can actually add in a filter with a mode X envelope. You can do this for much of the synths inside of Citrus. Sometimes it won't work, like if it's if the waves aren't going into each other correctly, or if the output isn't set correctly, it won't work. But yeah, most of the time it does. So that's why I had the filter going there to bring it down before it rises really hard, really fast. And then I fade in the drop lead pretty early. So I'm gonna go into that right now. So this is a pretty short video because this is one of the simplest songs I've made. So this is what plays in the drop. So this is a much more complicated synth. That was octave too high. 2 octaves too high. There. So here, let me just start with the filter 1 frequency. This is on mode X mapping, which I didn't use. But if I did want to use that, this was still in there, so I could have done that, but I ended up not using it at all. So the only thing I did use was this harmonic prism, which was using the prism, which if it was to be engaged, does a lot of stuff, because this is the harmonics of the prism, but I ended up taking that out. So yeah, it can get pretty crazy. And then I put on the vibrato all the way, and I increased the volume a little bit here, and I put up the unison all the way to 9 on HZ. If this were on classic, it sounds like this, and on HZ, it gets that vocally effect. So that was what was happening in here. And then on track 15, I have an EQ boosting some of the high frequencies and much more of the low frequencies, and then a maximus for compression. And you can see that was doing quite a bit of compression. It's almost reducing it by about 15% or something like that. So that is quite a bit of compression. Oh, there, it's gone. But that compression was pretty good to have that much compression. On the master, it's having more. Most of the compression is in the lows. So the reason I did boost the lows is, I could have just taken off the lows here, but I wanted to give the effect of the lows, because still have the amount, because what the compressor's doing is it's taking the lows that are already given and compressing it down to a lower volume. So I could have taken this out, yes, but then it would have sounded less bassy, because this would have compressed the lows it's receiving from here into the same space. So if there's more lows, it's really packing it down, decreasing the volume and pushing it into the same space. So I did want to increase the lows to compress it into the space. So if that didn't make sense, that's okay. It is kind of a little different thing I did there, but I did want to really compress all the lows that was coming in with this EQ into the same space with this maximus. So yeah. So that's what I did there. So that's mainly what's happening here, and then I just have a volume envelope fitting it in until it gets to the drop here. And I did add this ARPy thing in. This is towards the end. Towards the end of making, when I was mixing and mastering the song, I actually thought it'd be good to put this in. So this was just one of these presets up here. It was like something, might have been the Pumpkin or one of these Cubists presets that I had playing. I don't think I made any changes to the synth, but still I can go through what this preset's doing. So the preset, it's getting this harmor and a pitch envelope. Pitch. This envelope is changing the pitch. That's why the harmonics look all swervy like that. So it's changing the pitch, and then it has full harmonies and not the EQ, the unison is right there. The unison is on random, and what the random is doing is it randomizes which one of these it uses. So it just randomizes the shape is really what it's doing. So that could end up as being some of these. And then the filter is right there. So what this, it's just acting like a normal filter would. And then what this thing is I actually couldn't figure out what this little phaser thing is. I thought it was the phaser, but the phaser was not enabled. And I checked part B and it wasn't enabled there either. So I'm actually not quite certain. It's probably something in here. Filter 1, that's the frequency. Volume, this is the cutoff, that's volume. That is giving it kind of the shaky sound. So without that volume, it'd be like this. And then this is the harmonic prism, which is what's working with the prism like in that other preset. So if you change this, like kind of, it'll change it, the prism. So yeah, it's very little change, even though I put it on multiplier and turned it all the way up, but I didn't do a whole bunch in here. So that's basically the gist of what's happening in the synth, but you could always just check it out if you want to really see what's happening. So I did turn up the X, Y, and Z all the way though. And I put it onto track 21 where I added some reverb. And it's kind of just a below thing going on here. Just to kind of fill up the empty space, because this isn't a very full song, and I really wanted to get the drop kind of full and a lot of ARP-y kind of stuff, and especially this like dragging ARP kind of sound. So that's what I have there. And it goes to the bridge where I added some claps. And a good tip with the claps is actually to play two at once at different pitches. So instead of just playing like 4 on C, I did put them onto F sharp to kind of fill it up a little bit more instead of. So you can hear the difference there. It just sounds a little bit more natural when you have more playing rather than just with one. So like, you know, if they're all the C, you can even like add in more up here. Though it does help a little more to have some bass. Well, maybe not that bassy. But yeah, basically that's the idea. So that's what's going on there, and then I do have the claps going through here throughout the second verse. And then this it's basically just mimicking the lead. Oh, the velocity, put that up, doing this. So it is cutting out that one note that would be right here. Not right here, it would be right here. So it's cutting out that one note, and that's kind of just to give it some more depth, like I was saying, because this is a very empty song. Oh, octaves down. So I did put the pitch down here and raised it up a bunch of octaves. I don't really know exactly why. Just kind of when I'm mixing and mastering, I kind of like I put it up at a really high octave. I'm like, oh, it's too high. It has feedback. Just turn on the pitch, like, because it's just easier to do that than take the whole thing and bring it down. So then it's going on this wave, which was originally a triangle saw wave, but I did change it into kind of a really squished triangle wave kind of thing. And that, as you can see, it changed the harmonics a lot. So the harmonics are really concentrated right here in this region, and then they're like normal spread out here and concentrated a lot more up here to really focus on those high frequencies of the sounds. Like if I had an EQ, just go EQ to show you, it's basically what it's doing is it's kind of doing this. Kind of, not sound-wise because it already did that, so I don't need to do it again in the EQ, but this is really what the shape of what it's doing, and then it has a dead zone here, so it's something like this, no, right here, something like, kind of like that, but it's right here. And the why I have this down part is that is what this part is. This is basically a dead zone. Though it is concentrated, it is a dead zone of harmonics, and these are being used, and these are, and you can even see that in the EQ, that without this there, you can still see a little dead zone. Let me pull up a new EQ, because you couldn't see it there, I think because the highs were boosted. But if you pull it here, you can see right here that there is a dead zone. And that is what these harmonics are doing, like I already said before. Just to kind of make it clear, because sometimes I really speak really fast and it's kind of hard to understand. So I have the harmonizers up here to give it some harmony. So this it sounds better with the harmony since it's a lead here. And then I already showed you that. And then I have the filters up. It's really just a harmony though, and then this harmonic adjustment. And then on the mixer track, that's the EQ I was sampling with. I have a chorus to give it the chorus. Effects for a flanger. So that's the flanger. It's like that. So I put on a flanger on there, and then some reverb. So that's what that is doing. Basically it's kind of like the backup filling lead, and there's the main lead and the bass, and it's just a kick and clap pattern here with the snares on the fours of every 4 measures, which would be the 16ths if you were counting every measure. So, and then I have a clap volume envelope here that's decreasing the volume of the claps to fade those out. And I think now I actually would have done this, or maybe this, but I just left it flat there, because at that time when I made this sounded fine, but I think now I would actually suggest to curve your envelope so it sounds more natural, or like this, rather than just keeping it flat. But in this case it worked okay, but just experiment with like how your automation clips are to make it seem more realistic. And then this is my favorite section of the song, is towards the end, when it really gets to this build up. The first drop is the same though. And then this part, this lead here, which I do realize I forgot to show you in the first drop. This is what I already showed you in the second verse, so I don't need to show you that again. So this right here that's in the verse is what is playing in the drop too. So they're the same thing. Same lead, I mean. And then when it goes to this section, and all this build-up stuff, this is, like I said before, this is my favorite section in the whole song. And I have the ARPy thing playing the whole time, which I say that because that's what I titled the pattern. So it's easier just to read that instead of like forming what it is in my brain and having to say that. And it's a lot easier for me to just read it. But then I have this drop and the bass. So these are all the basses going on for this section. And those work together pretty well, since this is more like a bass line and this is a filthy bass line. And then in this pattern, I took the same lead that was playing from both drops and copied it, because this is the original spot, and put it an octave above, so it's playing 2 octaves at the same time. If you ever want to make something just sound really epic and full, just copy it and paste it on an octave above or below it, and it really fills things up. Though make sure you put it like at exactly the same octave, and not like this. Don't do that, because this will sound bad. So as you can see, that did sound pretty bad. So you have to make sure that's at the same octave, and then it'll sound good. So this is what's playing. So I have kicks with the snare as it goes to that double section. And then in this part, where it gets a lot bigger, I added in this bass line, which is very hard to hear because it's just sub. And I know I said this is just sub, and it kind of sounds exactly like a saw, and it is, but it still is sub because it has like this filthy saw on top of it. And on track 12, I put a Vocodex on top of it, which is increasing the band values and the gender type here. So it is a sub bass, but still it has the saw on top of it and this Vocodex, so it sounds really filthy. And then a random little tangent. I think the new Vocodex looks pretty cool. Like I really like the modern look of this. So yeah, good job, ImageLine. So anyways, back to Salvation Day. Then, as this goes on, I add back in the other stuff 4 bars after the drop here, as it gets to the snare. So once the snare gets added in, like all the tracks come together, and that's really just repeating this, except for in here, where when it goes to that higher spot, let's see, where is it here? I took this octave right here, this section, and put it on the octave above it. So this is staying constant, and then these are changing up to here. And then when I did do that, I did have it come up on a 1, and I did have it come down on a 2. Because when it came down on the 1, it sounded very unnatural. So I had it came down on the 2, and the next note would actually be a lower note. So it sounded very natural as coming down. So just when you do play around with these octaves, make sure that it does sound natural. Otherwise, it could like catch you off guard, so to speak. And then making it sound natural is something that's you really want to do. And then I have it go into this final part where I add in some flux. And I did have this little break here where I silenced everything, because to do that I wanted to add in this little bit and then get into the end. So that I think that was a pretty cool thing there. Definitely pauses before a big mass of music definitely helps it. So right here, where is it? It's playing the same thing. So the pattern's the same, so I don't need to show you that, but I will show you this harmonic patch. So the first thing, that octave is too high. That is still too high. Still too high. Right about maybe right here. I'll just play the pattern. So the harmonizers are all the way up. All of them are all the way up, and that is really what gives it this pluck kind of sound. Though it doesn't have the pluck enabled, because that sounds like this. Kind of sounds like a guitar or mandolin. So all the harmonizers are up, and I have 9 voices of blurred unison. I did put the pitch up, and I put it at a lower octave, just to kind of switch things around, like I said before. Just my way of using pitches and octaves is kind of weird. To put an octave below and then raise the pitch to basically undo itself. But that's just how I did it at that time, I guess, because that's how it is here. So 9 voices of unison, blurred, and on track 16, I have this Vocodex, which is kind of weird to put a Vocodex on it. But I put the vocoder on here. I increased some wetness, the band values, this reel for some, basically to help the reverb that's on here. And then I have this band distribution, and the harmonizer type is actually, I increased it a little bit. So it sounds a little bit more full. And I have the SG all the way up. And then with this reverb here, I have full wetness to really get it reverberating through the song. And then I end it here. So that was Salvation Day, and yes, it is a much simpler song. Really, the struggle with it was to keep it filling and entertaining with being such, because basically it's playing the whole pattern, the same song, in different octaves here and a little different variations. So if you do make a song like this, make sure to fill it up, and how the main thing that helped me to kind of conquer that was with adding in claps, adding in a second lead here, playing at halftime, and just adding interesting bass lines helps a lot too. So that would be my advice if you wanted to make a song similar to this. And if you have any more questions on how the song was made, I'd love to hear them in the comment section below. So I'll respond to the comments. So you guys can leave video ideas in the comments, suggestions, feedback, anything really. And I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about this. So see you guys next video.